Hi everybody, this is the second, we call it an edition, second edition of Crusher's Corner, and today is Friday, June 29th, 2018, for archive purposes. We need to say that when this is being aired years from now. Yeah. We have a lot of questions, so we'll cut right to the chase. We'll try to keep this a little shorter than the last show.
Hey, before we go, do we know how many responses we had or views from the last one?
Our man behind the scene, Joe says 7. We had 7 responses. 7.
Like 700.
700. 700 hits?
Good. At least.
Or views. So that's, if we figure that's everybody on the job. I don't think it necessarily is. We might have had some outside people.
You'll be on one of the big networks where this is over.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for. You know, some type of work after.
Yeah.
After I get fired, will be.
Is that where some of these questions are going to lead to?
No, but new legislation. You know, things are happening in the state. Things are moving. There are questions. We'll get to those. What else was I going to say about something? Okay, all right. We're gonna move on. It'll come back to me. I even have questions from people that I know. Let's just put it that way. Friends of mine have given me some questions that they didn't necessarily send as an email.
Oh.
But we'll go in like we did before, chronological order. First come, first serve. Hope we get to everybody. I keep looking at. I don't look at the camera. I'm looking at the lights. We got new lights. How does it look? How do we look? Be sure to respond to that too. Okay, after watching your first show and hearing the chief say how the fire department didn't have money for this and that, I'm wondering why in the world we're spending money to tear up a perfectly fine apparatus floor at Station 13 and replace the finish. Seems like a huge waste of tax money to me.
So I can tell you that for years we've not had, we call this fire station rehab money. It's bond money. We've not had that for quite a few years. Because it is bond money, whatever it's been allocated for in the vote, that's how it has to be spent. So station rehab, air conditioners, floors, wherever that may be. So when you talk about whether it's a waste of money or not, we sent Officer Nyman out to poll all the fire stations of things that they wanted, knowing that this money was coming last July 1st. And these are some of the things that they wanted. Some of the floors, while they were perceived good, at least the people at that station, felt like that there were some issues they wanted to address. I know some of the Station 16s needed floors redone because they were too slick. So I don't know that it's a waste of money to me when you go in and replace air conditioners and do other things. When you talk about a floor, that's one of the things that the people at that particular station wanted done. So yeah, we don't have money for other things, but again, that's bond money that went to pay for that, and that's how it has to be spent. We can't spend any of that money here at headquarters, for instance, because it's not the fire station. So when you talk about bond money, it's very specific about how it can be spent.
Well, this is a letter from someone at that station that sounds to me like they're concerned that the floor didn't need to be replaced. So I ask you, when Officer Nyman went to the stations and polled them, did he just go on one shift and ask that group what they thought, or
no? In fact,
was there a formal type?
Well, I don't know if it's a formal, but what he did do is he went to the stations and asked each shift, tell us who you want to speak on your behalf. You guys decide what you want as a station, all 3 shifts, and then you point someone that is going to be my point person to get these issues taken care of. And they did that. So I don't doubt that every fire station is not going to be 100% that they agree on what the priority of things are, but it's things that they've asked to be done, and that's why they got done.
Okay. I wish my little app worked so I could give you a little ding for success on that question.
Okay.
Or at least completion. Don't know how successful it was, but next question. This is like a 2-pager, so we'll try to whittle through this. It starts out saying this is a long, multiple-part question, so I apologize in advance, and I'm going to highlight some of it. So, Because then on the second page, he finally says, so my question is, this is all just to get there. He's talking about, it says in the resource allocation report that this department recently released, it states on page 5 that the Strategic Planning Committee recently revised the department's vision, mission statement, values, and strategic statement to more accurately reflect the way the department operates. It then goes on to several bulleted items involving visions and strategies, and I'll skip some of that, and this leads me to the next part of the question about out-of-date and inaccurate guidelines that are still being used as our playbook to perform our jobs. The EOG in particular is what he's talking about. It says it's almost 10 years old. Throughout the EOG, you find several areas that are now incorrect and needs to be addressed. And then he gives some examples. NIMS adoption statement, the link to the NIMS document does not work. And FYI, the copy of NIMS we have on the intranet is from 2008, and the most recent copy was updated in October of 2017. He talks about states of physical resources is where you go to get replacement passports, helmet IDs, and name tags. That job is now the quartermaster. Anyway, he lists several issues, and so my question is, shouldn't having the most up-to-date emergency operating guidelines be a very high priority for this department? And when can we expect this document to be updated so that our members who are studying for promotional exams are provided with the most accurate information possible? By the way, I think everybody out there is doing a great job, both in the field and at headquarters. Kiss, 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 kiss.
Well, I think it's a good question. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't have someone that can follow those types of the EOG and the AOP and those types of things to tell us when there are things that are outdated. I don't know that they're inaccurate. I think he used a good phrase by saying they're outdated. But when those come to our attention, we do try to address those things. And there are some things in the EOG that we have that we've corrected, and we usually do those in command staff when we get that opportunity to try and correct those things. But it's certainly not our intent to leave things out there that are outdated. That's not beneficial to anyone. So people just need to tell us when they come across those things, and I can assure you we'll deal with them. Typically the things that come across in the AOP, because they do pertain to promotional exams, we try to deal with those in the personnel committee and try and get those corrected as soon as we can. And in fact, right now, we're going to start in mid-July several meetings with the union to go over the AOP to update it to now, to 2018. It's not that we're going to go in there and add anything necessarily or delete it. There will be a few additions, but for the most part, just catch it up to date because it is 4 years old now, and we don't want it to go past that. But for the most part, I suspect there are some things out there that are outdated, and people just need to let us know when they come across those things so that we can get on it and fix them.
Awesome. Well, there's a start right there. He's got, I'm sure it's not a complete list, but he did put it category by category, section number. So that, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck.
No,
that would be some help. And for you out there, like I said, if you come across anything that's stands out or is incorrect, and a policy in the EOG that we don't do anymore, that we do different, send it to who?
Well, send it to me, and then depending on what the issue is, then I can filter it down to other folks.
And he'll send it to the proper channels and see if we can get it changed.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, this one starts out, hopefully you'll get to continue the corner. Loved it.
Good.
Here's another KISS question. Thank you, though. Why do we still send in truck checklists on truck day? Does anyone really read them? If you don't send it in a timely fashion, you will get a phone call. And then somebody's obviously looking at them. Anyway, they're sent to the district chiefs and supply, but if there is an actual repair needed on a truck, separate email is sent detailing the issue. This seems to be something that started a long time ago, and we just continue to do it because that's the way it's always been done. So, what do you know about truck checklists on truck day? And are we doing anything with them?
Yes, we are. I don't know that that's the way that it's always been done, and that's why we're doing them. I can give you, for instance, that there's some of the things that we talked to when we had the Brontos issues. When we went down and talked to the mechanics, we asked them, what are you seeing come in on these checklists, and they could tell us. They look at those checklists, and they have records on everything that they've got down there. Of course, since Opie's been down there, I think he's been a lot more diligent about looking at those checklists and see what some of the concerns are. Just this past week, Mike Owen, who's been down here working on some stuff for us, has went through all the checklists on inspections for the apparatus to bring it up to date. So I think that was the first step that we needed to bring it up to date. And then we had a presentation, I believe, on Wednesday from a company, actually it was Target Solutions, that come in and said, here are some opportunities with these checklists that you can send those through, and they'll hit the right people. They'll also go to the garage, and they'll go to other people within the fire department, so that we can ensure that those things are being identified or getting taken care of. So I think we have a plan in place to try and address some of those issues, but I don't want people to think that they're just checking the boxes and nobody's looking at them, because that's not the case.
So it's not going away, we're going to continue to do
We have to continue to do those, yes, those monthly or weekly inspections.
Okay, next question. Recently, our fire station received much-needed repairs. For that, we're very appreciative. However, workers were allowed to start running power tools and beating on the roof at 5:30 a.m. I would just like to know if the chief would allow that at his home, waking his family. Apparently they've got some early riser repair people.
Yeah, I haven't heard of this one as far as people getting there early, but what I have heard from some of the stations was that the contractors were leaving a mess. And so that's been addressed with the contractor, not to do that. So if you have any issues, this is the first I've heard that somebody's getting there that early, but if you do have those issues, they just need to send those to Officer Nyman. He's the one that's in charge of those contractors, and he can get it fixed.
Yeah, I think that's a little extreme, 5:30 in the morning. I wouldn't mind people getting an early start. I understand the heat, but anyway, Officer Nyman, he says to contact for any problems with the contractors. Let's see. It used to be that each member received at least $450 for uniforms yearly. At a conservative 650 members, that's over $292,000. A while back, there was an email sent with everyone's current balance to get into the quartermaster with over 100 names, meaning that at least $45,000 of it isn't being used. How much is the annual quartermaster budget? One question. How much do they spend annually? Another question. And also, since not everyone is in the system yet, what happens to the difference? Is it use it or lose it money? If so, what is it being spent on?
Well, I can tell you, this is one of those, if you have budget questions, if there's some way that we can get some of those beforehand, I can give you a more accurate number. I can't tell you what we have. I could have at one time. I don't know what the budget currently is for the quartermaster system, but we're getting the same amount that we would have if people were still being paid like we did before. And we do have the list that comes out, and there are people who still aren't in the quartermaster system. So there are other things that we try to do with that money. We have other needs within the fire department, within the quartermaster system that we need. For instance, everybody got the larger badge on their coat. That's typically not something that we have, and we had extra money in the quartermaster system, so we pay for that. There are other things, when we try to buy shoes for people, I want them to be not generic like we used to have years ago when we had our physical fitness where everybody got the same pair of tennis shoes.
The blue ones.
The blue ones, the atomics.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why sometimes some people's boots are $350 a pair, but to me, if that's what it needs, if that's what they need to make them more comfortable, that's important. And so we have some things that go over in some areas, but the quartermaster system as a whole, that budget, helps to cover those things. In the end, a few years ago, Mayor Bartlett asked us to give some money back to the city to help meet our financial obligations. And we had to give back quite a bit of money in our quartermaster system. That's the only place that we had it. So we have given some money back before, but I think the finances are a little bit better. We've not had to do that within the past year or two. But when it gets real bad, that's about the only place that we have money to give back. Everything else is either encumbered or is identified through a bond package that has to be spent to that. So I apologize, I don't have the numbers for the budget.
That's fine.
But if we can remember that, I'll have them by the next time that we talk about it and the amount that we spend.
I have a comment on this, and this, maybe I should give some disclaimer. This is not necessarily the view of the administration or the fire department, but you guys, these 100 people who are out there, I beg you, get in the system and spend the money. I know we used to get $450, and I know that $292,000, but if we don't use that quartermaster system, and this is just my opinion, and they start looking at that, and it's saving them that money, I think that money will go away. But that may or may not be true. But please get in the quartermaster system and use the quartermaster system. You know, I may say that as I'm wearing a frayed shirt or something, but these people who aren't in the system yet, we've had a quartermaster for how long now? 2 years?
It's been at least 2 years.
And I usually, when I think I know a time frame, I double it, and that's what it truly is. So if I think it's 2 years, it's probably closer to 4. But we've had it there a long time, and there's still people not in the system, and it's unbelievable. And then we gripe about the system, how it works, and that we're getting cheated out of the uniforms and the money. It's there. It's easy to order things through Brad. May take a while to get some things, but they eventually do come. So that's my 2 cents on quartermaster. Thanks for listening. Can we have our gas meter plugs back? We used them for years until suddenly they were taken away, resulting in a long wait for hazmat to respond and plug a leaking residential meter. You don't have those gas meters. Gas plugs.
Yeah, I'll check into this and see. Somebody mentioned this to me a couple years ago that they didn't have them, and it was news to me that we didn't have them anymore. We have a meeting today at 2 o'clock with ONG to kind of discuss the explosion that we had a couple of weeks ago that hurt D-Lo. And by the way, for those who don't know, he got out of the hospital yesterday afternoon, so he's at home. But we'll visit with probably Officer Ator and see why we don't have those on the trucks, and then see if ONG has any issues with us having them. But I think that's a good question as to why we don't have them there. I just don't know what the correct answer is.
I am scratching out the name on this, and there's your little reminder.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Can we make? Oh, here's kind of to the man behind the scene. Question for Joe. Cheryl, can we make Crusher's Corner searchable on YouTube instead of having to watch it off of a link that is sent through the city email? Continuing. A lot of stations have smart TVs that have the YouTube app on them. However, because you cannot search and find the show, you cannot watch it as a company at the station on TV. The only way to watch it is if we watch it on the computer through email. Thanks. Somebody's name. I don't think anybody. Which, by the way, we talked last time about being anonymous, and I got a lot of response of people saying they don't care.
Good.
I think they're to the point, and I'll say it here. If you want to remain anonymous, let me know, and I'll definitely keep you anonymous. But otherwise, if we have rebuttals or responses back, it's not a big deal to put your name on there, and this person did. So anyway, Chris Whittington, here's your answer. Joe, give us some feedback. Why can't we do it?
I mean, it's possible to do it, but just a security measure so it's not out there for the whole public to see. If you open it up to search, then anybody and anywhere can see it. So.
Which personally, I think, maybe it's something we can sit down and talk about. Is that an issue that anybody can see it? I don't know that we're hiding anything or saying anything. Occasionally, I guess we could have things that may not be public information. had a little bit of discussion. This camera only records so long, that's why there's little breaks in between. But we had some discussion about this last question, Crusher's Corner being searchable on YouTube and not a link. And we think we may try that. So thanks for the suggestion. And Joe tells us it's only a click away to be able to do that. We just thought we would keep things a little more private and within the department. But Fire Chief said, we agree, there's no secrets here. So everything's above board. We're not trying to hide anything. So if that makes it easier and makes me more famous, more hits for Crusher's Corner, by all means, let the public view.
You're going big.
We're going big. That's it. We're going big. We're not going home. We're going big. I think we're through with that question. I just noticed that's another.
Do
Chris
we have any
Whittington
questions? Question 788, any of those coming up?
Oh, they're coming up. Yeah, sit tight. Sit tight.
Stay tuned.
And you mentioned earlier, which you shouldn't have, you said something about air conditioning. There's some air conditioning questions in here too.
Good.
Oh, wow, here's a 788 question, the very next one.
How about that?
What has the city administration done to prepare for the legislation of medical marijuana? How will it affect our current drug testing policy? And last but not least, now that I've brought it up, how long until I'm randomly drawn? Signed, Scotty Stokes, by the way. Okay, there's your questions, Chief.
Yeah, I can't answer his random why it's been so long, but
okay.
I will tell you the city was really thinking about some of this before the vote this past Tuesday, and we had conversation yesterday with City Legal about the implications within the fire department. Obviously, they're looking at policies throughout the city overall, so we don't have any answers yet to impact, what that may look like, how it could affect policy. But I do want people to be mindful, and I don't know if you have a question on this later. People need to be mindful that when you talk about something like marijuana or drugs, prescription drugs, alcohol, any of that, we are public safety, and so we're not like the general public. So there are certain restrictions that we have that you cannot come to work in an altered mental state. So you need to be mindful of that. Even if you have a prescription for something, it's not within the interest of public safety that you come to work that way. Or that you do something on the job. Obviously, that's going to be a detriment to someone's career. But I don't want people to think, generically speaking, that if they have a prescription that they're okay, because that's not going to be the case. Because you still need to be able to perform your job. So we'll see what comes from City Legal and how it's going to affect some of the policies and some of those things. But we've had a lot of discussion here this past week about potentials, and not just within the city of Tulsa, across fire departments across the country, and how this is going to, how they impact it. There's 29 other states right now that have this, and so there's some discussion right now going with some of the policies that they have and how they handle it. So I don't think this will be it will be new to us, but not new to them. And I think we need to glean on them a little bit and understand how they dealt with these issues.
Okay. This is not necessarily a reflection of the department or the administration. My input only. I think everybody has the perception that if they have a prescription for medical marijuana, that the dosage or the amount that they smoke, or that they're going to become recreational users with it. I wonder when marijuana is prescribed if the dosage even. Here's an example. I had mentioned, probably shouldn't on Facebook, but I communicate a little bit. And I mentioned the one and done concept of alcohol. There's people that live by that. If they're out drinking, they have one and they're done. And it doesn't put them above the legal limit. It does not impair their driving, and they're fine. And I wonder if marijuana wouldn't be that way. If somebody had a prescription for marijuana for whatever reason, does that mean you smoke a whole joint and you're stoned? Or does that mean you take a pill, or you take a drop, or you take whatever, and it deals with your illness or problem, but you're not altered mentally? So that's just my thoughts, and I don't know if that's the case.
Right.
We'll see when the prescriptions come out. But
yeah.
I think it's going to become more and more this is another personal thought, more and more wide use. I think it's probably a good alternative to some of the synthetic medications that we have, and I
Right.
think a lot of people will be using it.
Yeah.
Does it affect them? I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I don't either.
I think it's the same one. I didn't turn the page, did I? Or at least. Oh, and another thing about it that someone mentioned to me is when you're talking with departments and other things, to think outside the box a little bit. It's not, when this becomes legal, you know firemen, they're very lucrative, they're very off-duty, they do things to make money. It's not out of their league by any means to grow. If that becomes legal, to be a distributor, if that becomes legal. So I had some questions, is the department going to allow that? If I want to cultivate, legally of course,
Right.
and distribute as a dispensary operator or owner, or even just work in one, is the department, that's something I think they should think about and look at too. Are we going to allow that?
Well, I think this is just my opinion, because I've not talked to city legal about it, but I think what people do, as long as people act within the ramifications of the law, I mean, they're doing that. I think what you're doing when you're off days, as far as you're operating within the constraints within the law, that's one thing. What you come to work, the condition you come to work in and what you bring with you is another.
Right.
And so again, without talking to city legal, I think we need to be very careful about what we're going to try and, if we try and dictate to our members about what they can do on their day off, if it's legal. I think we need to be very careful about that. I think that's quite a bit different though than how someone comes to work.
Okay. That's probably all the questions about that we have. Ooh. Anonymous. Thanks. Concerned is how it's signed.
Concerned.
Okay, I'm not trying to review these ahead. I'm just trying to not stutter when I read. Number one, do you think it's a problem that we had to bring in 14 alternates to this current class? If so, how are you going to fix it? Number two, I'll go ahead and read that. Why are we offering positions to individuals that do not have all the required certifications, such as EMT?
So we had on the first question, we did have, keep in mind this was a very unique situation, because even though we had public safety funds, we were not supposed to get those 60 firefighters other than over a 5-year period. When we got the grant, one of the stipulations of the grant was you had so many days to hire all these people. We felt like that was something that we needed to do. It was more important to me to get firefighters on the street today rather than wait over a 5-year period. So we had a certain amount of time to hire 60 people. When you have a certain amount of time to hire that number of people, you don't have the opportunity to spread that over a few years. Now you had 180 days to try and make that happen total from the time you start the process till you get them hired. And so that's one of the ramifications that we had with this. The pool wasn't quite as big because we had to look at some of the people who had taken the last chief's interview. So in the end, when you talk about those time constraints, the pool's not as large. Concerned about some of the things that we had, yes, but we did have some of the alternates that were forced out at the pension board system, at the pension doctor. So I've not experienced that before, and we had some that were kicked out at that level, which was new. So we had 3 that were dismissed at that point, and we did have some that didn't have their EMT. The reason that we allowed them to go through, even though they didn't have all their credentials, mainly EMT, was I keep hearing from people who don't have their EMT that, well, if I had it, I would have been hired. And so this time, we let them get all the way up to the chief's interview, and I give them conditional offer of employment if they got their EMT by a certain date, because we wanted them to have that at least a couple weeks out before the academy started. And we had some people that didn't get passed. Sometimes these people will say, well, if I'd had it, I would have been hired. Well, you had an opportunity, and you didn't pass your EMT, so it's not on us. This is back on you. I don't know whether we're going to continue that going forward, although I think it did make an impression in some people's minds that when we give you that conditional offer, you're going to need to pass your EMT. And we tell them, don't wait until 2 or 3 months after you take your class to try and take the test. But it seems to be the norm for those people who are not successful at passing their EMT, that they wait too long. Again, we're still trying to think about whether that's the right thing to do. I really appreciate the fact that we got some people, even though they didn't have their EMT, because it did increase the pool, which is one of the concerns that we had. So this was a very unusual number that we had to replace with alternates. But I don't think that the pool is any less qualified to do the job.
I know, you said it was an unusual number for alternates, meaning it was a high number? Is that what you're?
Well, we
meaning?
we didn't pick as many as we normally did.
As
alternates. Typically, we pick 10.
That's what I thought, that's what I was going to.
Right, but we only picked 7 out of this group. But keep in mind that when we do that, what we're going by is the score. And so in this particular group, I don't remember the number, but I think we chose. All right, we picked from this group. Whatever's left of this group is going to be alternates, which I think were just 2 or 3, and we're going to pick the next bank of scores. So the next group. So now we picked up to whatever that number was, 7.5. Now let's go down to the 7.25, make all those people alternates, in addition to the people that were left over in the 7.5 score. So that's how we get at the different numbers. We try to get about 10, depending on how many is going to be in the class, but that number is not always the same. And this time we only picked 7, and that proved that we should have picked a few more, and we'll do that in the future.
I think I've seen us use all 10 before. It may have been before your reign as fire chief, but I've seen us go through all 10, and we're needing another one. But we were too far into the academy. I think this is, again, my personal opinion, but after a couple of weeks, it's hard to get somebody up to speed if you bring them in 2-3 weeks into the academy. So
yeah, and that's our cutoff date right now is 2 weeks. And in fact, all those people, keep in mind, we have to get the whole class in through City Medical, get all their stuff done there. We also have to get their information sent to the pension board, get it approved there, along with some other stuff, background information. We send the whole class, but we also send the alternates. So if people do fall out, it's just a phone call. When somebody drops or gets dismissed, we just call them and say, you need to report there in the morning. In this particular case, because we didn't have quite as many alternates, we had to go down and then make that happen at the last minute. And luckily, we were able to get it done.
I know there's some concern just from phone calls I've had. There's no questions on it here. Maybe it's questions for the next show due to time, but as to what your thoughts are, again, you don't have to answer this, but why our pool seems to be shrinking. There's a lot of us, including you, that remember 1,000 people applying for the job, and now it seems we're down to literally a handful compared to that. And when you are there's concern. I've had people call and ask questions. There's concern when you start, even though you said it was only 1/4 of a point, you started going to the 7 1/4s instead of the 7 1/2s, the scores. There's concern that we're just scraping the bottom of the barrel and putting them in there. And it's only 1/4 of a point, I understand that. But that may be for another show, another time, to discuss why we seem to be shrinking in pools.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of reasons. Obviously, when we had the potential layoffs, that affected some people. I was approached by a member of the union the other day that said the starting wage that we have on the website is wrong. And so I had Marlo get on that, and that day she sent an email to try and correct that. We know that that's an issue when they're paying more in other cities. So we got that corrected. I think there's a lot of other things that come to play as to why our pool is not as big, but we just had a meeting yesterday, and Barrett Kramer had a presentation about some things that they've done at 15s. And the thing that I liked about that was our members are taking the initiative to go out and find the people who are qualified candidates to try and get them interested within the fire department, to tell them as freshmen and as seniors and some in the military about what the fire department offers for them. And it's not about the benefits. It's just trying to identify some of those people who have the heart that we want to try and get on this job. Has the pool decreased? Yes. But it's decreased across the country. It's just not in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For various reasons. You can pick the reasons and have debates over that. But in the end, we have to be a lot more diligent about going out and trying to recruit the right people so that we have good people that will stay here 25 and 30 years.
Awesome. This was, I think, already addressed. Now that marijuana is passed, are firefighters allowed to start their own business growing the devil's lettuce? and selling to dispensaries on their days off? Or will there be a policy prohibiting us from participating? I think we've already addressed that, Fire Chief mentioned. We're tiptoeing through the legalities, and I guess once they tell us what the rules are, as far as the bill itself, then we'll know more. Is there anything we can do as a job to reverse the mandatory statement of the dispatcher saying, fasten your seatbelt on every call? My response would be fasten your seatbelt, but what is it? They're still, the dispatchers on it, after every dispatch, they're saying, wear your seatbelt, fasten your seatbelt.
Yeah, they're not.
Apparently this is.
They're not saying
this
it, no,
individual.
they're not saying it after every call.
They're not.
Because I asked, when we had a seatbelt issue here a few years ago, I asked dispatch to say it on every call, but they're not doing it. There's one gentleman that I hear frequently say, please fasten your seatbelt. I don't see that it's a problem to remind people to put their seatbelt on. So obviously we don't control dispatch, and I wish they would all do it. But this gentleman has certainly taken it upon himself to continue to ask people to do that, and I appreciate the fact that he's done it.
Okay. It's not going away.
No.
Wear your seatbelt. Oh, this one, I like this. With the increase in assaults, my accent may not be saying that, assaults and attacks on first responders, that's happened very recently too.
Yes.
And this may have even been before that. But what is the thought on allowing firearms on the apparatus? Many firefighters already on the trucks are CLEAT certified and could be commissioned by the fire department to carry. With policies already in place for commissioned firemen, this seems like it would be an easy transition. I have attached a link for a reference on the amount of assaults. Here's another page you can put in for your homework assignment.
You know, I think we want to be very careful here, because just because of the fact if someone was to, even if they're CLEAT certified, if they start carrying a weapon with them, what's going to occur? And so you had this issue that happened within the last week where the firefighter was shot and killed, another firefighter was injured. They were going to, I believe, a retirement home because the guy had set fire to the building. We need to be very careful about that, because if we don't have some policy in place that says how you're going to address those issues, now you're a firefighter, but you're also a person that's trying to protect yourself and others who hopefully is CLEAT certified if they are carrying a weapon. So I think we need to be very careful about what our goal and our intent is as a fire department going out there. I think this references more maybe our protection of issues that we have out there. When we see a lot of issues that start occurring here within the city of Tulsa, then I think we will really have to look at policies and things that we need to do. But I don't want to jump out there and start saying that this is how we're going to be proactive and try and take care of something that's occurring here and there in certain places. It's occurred in Dallas, and it's occurred in, here just recently within the last week. But we need to be very careful about that. And the fact that you talk about this same person, so what happens to them, that's one of our firefighters that's carrying a firearm and then goes into a fully involved structure fire trying to rescue someone? What's the implications of that? What's the issues that could happen there with the firearm inside a burning building? We just need to be very careful. Does everyone know that he has that firearm? What's going to occur if he encounters someone? How does it subject other firefighters if one of our folks have a firearm and nobody else knows it? I'm not saying that it's something that we shouldn't look at, and I'll go look at this link. There's just a lot of other implications about when if we were to give permission to everybody to wear a firearm with them while they're on duty.
This response is in no way the view of the fire department or its administration. My thoughts on this, though, you mentioned, this is not exactly how you said it, but problems with other departments in other cities. I would not want us to see us wait until one of our own gets killed to address the problem. And you talked about being proactive. I think, to me, on this issue, it should be proactive instead of waiting and saying, well, they've got problems, we don't. It's everywhere, and you don't know where it's going to come up. The idea of someone carrying and not everybody knowing it, I think that's probably the good.
I've fallen, and I is no one helping her? Help her!
We're sending help immediately, Mrs. Fletcher.
Oh, good, they're coming.
Okay, we're back again. Sorry for the little intermission. I was on a roll about weapons on the fire trucks or on the fire department or on the firemen or whatever. I think it should be a proactive thing. I think, we've got license to carry now. I can walk around on my day off out of uniform carrying a weapon in Oklahoma, even on my hip if I wanted. I think concealed carry personally is the way to go. You mentioned what if no one knows you have the weapon. I think that's the idea. No one knows you have the weapon. We're not out there acting like police officers. But as I mentioned, I can carry a weapon, have a license by the state on my days off in civilian clothes. I don't think it would be a shock to any civilian to see a firefighter in uniform with a weapon. As far as going into a house fire with a gun, I don't think the gun's going to go off because it gets too hot or any of that. I think that's fairy tale. But also, my final comment is the saying of I'd rather be carried by 6 than tried by 12. No, the other way around. Tried by 12 than carried by 6. That's the saying. So I don't know, and I'm not going to say I'm sitting here advocating for it. I hope that the department does look at it as well. And there are problems.
I think it does have some valid concern, and I'm not saying that we should wait till something happens before we look at it. We need to look at it now and see what the implications are. And when I commented about people not knowing you have it, I'm talking about other firefighters. I'm not talking about the public. I'm talking about other firefighters. Are they aware that you have it? And I think there needs to be, if that's the case, if we choose to go that route, I think there's a lot more training that we need to do, because some may want to carry, some may not. Well, we need to think about that then, and how that would be applied, on the fire ground or at EMS call or some of those things. But we need to look at it and see what other fire departments are doing and see what we want to do here.
We have the option to call PD. We know that. And I think, to give them some credit, I think when fire department does call, they're very quick to respond.
Right.
It's not like a civilian that's calling and saying, I think I hear somebody in my garage.
Right.
When we call for help, help's on its way.
Right.
But there's situations, this recent thing at a nursing home, who would have thought to call? When we show up and there's a crowd gathered and they're belligerent and screaming, sure, we'll call for PD. We know the scene and the situation. But I think there's that, unfortunately, that, you wouldn't think pulling up to a nursing home that you're going to have somebody that's a patient there taking pot shots at you.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry, I digress. Here's kind of a workers' comp question. When people are injured outside of work, they're not afforded the opportunity of light duty. What is the reasoning behind this decision? What are the steps for changing this policy or decision? Allowing an individual the opportunity of light duty restrictions could benefit TFD. The member would be able to support operations by improving the efficiency of the department, i.e. filling in where shortfalls occur, or by simply assisting those with high workloads. Also, the possibility of reducing job-related injuries cannot be denied. A reduction in workers' comp claims would be a great benefit to every member. Thank you, Mr. Crusher, for asking my question.
Several comments there, and first of all, workers' comp and HR are the ones who set the guidelines as far as injury leave. All those things fall within the workers' comp courts. When it comes to light duty, there are a lot of departments that are going away from light duty, that they don't even have that option. we're fortunate enough that we've been able to convince the right people to maintain light duty because there's a lot of positive benefits to that. Light duty right now obviously is only through on the job injury. It doesn't address anything off the job. I think there's an expectation from the city that that's what your sick leave is for and that's what your vacation is for. I don't know what the impact, I don't know how many people we have that get injured off the job that would be, if it was permissible here, who would qualify to do that. I don't know what that number would be, but we would need to look at it. But in the end, it's going to be HR that's going to make the determination whether, because the city doctor works through HR, HR would have to make the determination if that's something that they wanted to entertain to put people on light duty. But I tell you what, we get a lot of good work done for people on light duty. A lot of good work that would not be done otherwise.
Agree with that.
If we didn't have people who come in and do some of the things that they do.
So could you say if a person's injured off duty, could they go to city medical and ask about it?
Well, they can ask.
With Dr. Berry, hey, can I, I just got an ingrown toenail here. Can I answer some phones or help some individuals?
I think they can ask, but he's
They
not.
have
He's
the
not
authority.
done it. He's got the authority.
Okay.
He through HR has got the authority to decide who's going to be on light duty, but he also has someone that works in workman's comp. Now I don't think it's
Right,
gonna,
they're in the building. So.
Right. So I don't think he's going to approve it, but yes, he's got the authority to decide who can and will not be on light duty.
So steps to change the policy or decisions?
I think.
How would you make that change?
I think that's something that we just entertain that idea with HR and get Dr. Berry's opinion on what he thinks the implications could be. We need to decide.
There you go. Work on it.
Is it going to be 2 people or is it going to be 20 people in the past,
Right.
in a year? And I think that's going to be one of the first questions that's asked. How often does this occur and what would be the implications to that?
And I personally think it could be looked at on an individual basis. Just because we've had 20 people injured off duty doesn't mean all 20 of them are going to get light duty.
Right.
Depends on what they can do.
Sure.
Wow. 6
Like
questions.
a policy.
Is it true that we're out of money to fix air conditioners on the fire trucks? I told you it was coming. We asked Chief Mallory when our apparatus would be fixed and were told starting July 1, Supply would send 1 truck per week until they're all fixed. If this is the case, said apparatus will be fixed in October.
You can answer that one first before we go further. Do these other
Let me put them all together. It looks like they're all air conditioner issues. How do you feel knowing that half of your fleet does not have air conditioning? We would like to see all admin with windows down and no AC on for the rest of the summer. We know you have AC because support has all new vehicles. Man, they're on you. Number 3, can we pass an emergency admin order to allow crews to wear shorts on apparatus without working air conditioner? This is allowed for training officers when the humidex is equivalent to a heat index of 90 or above. If he answers, maybe I'm not supposed to read this part.
Okay.
If he answers that we could negotiate it with the union, ask when he is going to stand up for the firemen and quit putting everything on the union. Wow. I'll ask that depending on how you answer this question, I guess. I didn't read that out loud.
Okay.
When are we going to get a handle on spending money and learn to prioritize? Example, insulation vacuums, nozzles, non-kink hose to make nozzles work, caps for grass rigs, gear bag, custom face piece bags. These are nice but not necessities. Soap dispensers for washing trucks, big orange suitcase flashlights, foam nozzles on grass rigs, and drones are just a few of the known misappropriated purchases. I'm going to stop there and let you start answering some questions.
Okay.
Because we're kind of changed the subject there. We got off of the air conditioner.
So let me give you some timeline on the air conditioners. When we were presenting our budget, we didn't have the opportunity to present like we have in the past. We were just put into a meeting with TPD and told us to kind of hit the highlights of our budget. I had some concerns with that, and so I went to Jack Blair and asked, can we at least get our air conditioners fixed prior to it start getting hot? This was in April of this year. He asked for a number, how many that was. I told him at the time it was 14, about $30,000. Keep in mind, we have a budget for our EMD. for the garage. We do not set that budget. EMD tells us what that budget will be, and within that budget, they have I don't recall the proper name, but it's outside, things are going to be fixed from outside vendors, not fixed in our garage. Air conditioners is one of those, because they don't have anybody that can just work here and just fix air conditioners. So obviously we went through that budget pretty quickly, and when we got to a point where we couldn't fix air conditioners, that's when I went to Mr. Blair and asked him, can we come up with $30,000 to start fixing them? About a month later, we completely ran out of that money. So even if the truck had some broken springs or other issues, there was no money to send them out to get them fixed. I voiced that concern to the mayor and told him we needed to have a plan of how we were going to address these issues. We rock along here, and then we hit this past week where it really got a lot of attention because some people were raising some concerns, which I think were certainly valid concerns. I got an email from the mayor yesterday asking how many trucks are without air conditioners, and at that time there were 19, as of yesterday. So he instructed Mark Hogan, who runs EMD, to get on the air conditioners immediately. The problem was there's no money. So here we are Friday, 29th or 30th of June, 29th, and they're going to start on a Monday because that's when the new fiscal period hits. So we'll start seeing those air conditioners get fixed. We don't like it. We hate it that they're not being fixed, but there's nothing else that we can do. When we did have some money, when I would talk to Obie about this, he would have, for instance, 8 items on a truck, one being an air conditioner, and he would come to the captain and say, I can fix these 3 items today and get your truck back to you, or it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks and we'll fix everything on them because it's going to set in line at the place we take for the air conditioner. According to him, the vast majority of the time, that the captains would say, just fix these few things and get us our truck back. We want our truck back. Most people want their truck. They don't want a reserve. We've all been that way. So it's unfortunate that we got in this position where we spent all that money on the outside, but we did ask EMD for our next budget year to increase those numbers to ensure that we have more money there to deal with these issues. So I don't like it. I think it's very unfortunate, but I think from the emails that I saw yesterday, I can just tell you that the mayor was not happy that this has got to the point that it has. But Monday, there's a prioritized list that he has now that myself and Mark Hogan will give to him to get everything fixed.
Well, maybe you know this and maybe you don't. I thought it was ironic. Did you read the story? I think it was Channel 8 had it wasn't a video, it was just a written story that somebody had posted about the air conditioners. They said there was 17 or whatever not used. And I don't know where they got their information from. I didn't know if it was you, but and they said that the department would use their bus at any major incidents to cool the firefighters down. And when I read that, I just thought, maybe you don't know, it's ironic. The bus is one of the air conditioners that's not working.
Right.
So, anyway.
Yeah, they didn't get that information from, I didn't talk to anyone other than Stan when he got a phone call from them.
And I don't think everybody on the department knows every truck and every vehicle that's the air conditioner's not working, but I just, not that it's funny, but just kind of chuckled and I thought, the bus is not going to be one that gives you any relief.
Right.
And they're getting ready to use the bus for some civilians, something. By the way, Chief Teeters is going to be driving the bus
tomorrow.
And the air conditioners don't work.
We've had several requests of departments within the city asking to use our bus, and we told them, sure, we can use it, but there's no
It'll be a hot ride,
yeah.
And the windows do not open. It's not like a school bus.
Mm.
The windows don't slide open. So,
okay.
Just FYI for those interested.
I don't think.
Oh, what else did you? Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt. You had other questions. Let me see. Apparatus without working. He said, "Oh, wearing the shorts."
Yes, wearing the shorts, but I don't think he wanted you. I think he was preparing for what some of my answers would be. For those people who didn't have air conditioners in trucks, could they wear shorts? I think is where he was.
Yeah.
Hinting to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, again, even though he don't like this answer, if we just dictate and say we're going to make a uniform change, there's going to be issues with the union to do that, and so we need to work with them. I've not heard anything from the union that says that they want to pursue something like this. I don't have any issue sitting down with them to talk about if there's some relief until we can get these air conditioners fixed, or if there's some policy in the uniform that they want to change going forward. Some departments do wear shorts during the summer months, so I think we need to sit down and have that conversation, but the union has got to be at the table.
The handle on spending and learn to prioritize. Example, insulation vacuums. You know, I read that question. I won't read it again, but
Yeah.
a lot of equipment he's mentioned here that he feels is not necessary and is basically a waste of money. Spend a lot of money.
Yeah, I think
on a lot of equipment.
I think he's made a good points on several of those things in there. One I will disagree with is the drone, because of some things that we have opportunities and how we're going to utilize that drone. But some of the other things I think are valid concerns that he's got. When I made the stations, a lot of the things that I heard from people that if they had some concerns about purchases were that we were making these purchases, but we really wasn't running these things by the field to see if that's what they wanted. So we're transitioning and moving into that attitude about before we start spending money for a bunch of things, let's get the field's input, which is what you see, I think, on this second round of these nozzles that we've started running into. However, I want to clarify something. When we talk about this non-kink hose, this was something that we started purchasing when we heard about the first nozzles that we were having issues. And so I instructed Mallory, he come across this non-kink hose and as a potential remedy to deal with the issues on the first nozzles that we had. Once we got them in, we started getting reports from people that even though they won't kink, they have other issues, so they're more heavy and some other things. So I think people will see a transition from whether it's flashlights or whatever that may be, things that they get in the field. We're going to start field testing a lot more stuff before we make these purchases to ensure that that it's went through the rigors of field operations to validate the purchase and validate if that's really what people want.
I agree with you on the drones. I see a lot of use for drones.
Right.
And they're, in the big scheme of things, they're not that expensive.
Right.
So anyway, they're very useful, I think, in hazmat situations and many others. At the last graduation, you stated to the parents and the cadets graduating that Tulsa Fire has the best equipment there is available. What equipment are you talking about?
Well, I tell you what, I don't know what I said word for word. I'd have to go back and look at what I had written down there. But you know, I think we can be perceived, whether you talk about equipment in trucks or you talk about equipment in nozzles or hose or any of that. We strive to try and always buy the best of the best, but we have financial constraints. We have city policy constraints that don't always allow us to buy the best of the best. I don't have any doubt in my mind that the SCBA or the bunker gear coats that we have today and the pants and the flashovers are the best of the best. No doubt in my mind. The trucks, when we bought them at the time that we bought them, were the best of the best. But they're old, and we didn't have money. And we're, unfortunately, we're in the position where we're at right now. Nobody's fault within the fire department. These are some things that happen because of other issues that come before any of us. But we will continue to strive to get the best of the best. That's our goal, to do that. Do we have a perfect department and perfect equipment? No. But those families need to hear that it's certainly a concern of ours that we'll do everything we can to get the best equipment for their loved ones that are going to be put in harm's way, and not feel like that we just take the little bit every time on something. So I appreciate what that person is saying and where he's coming from. However, if money was no object, we would have the brand new equipment coming out every year, and adding money to fire stations every year, making people feel more comfortable. But the reality is that all that takes money. Right now, we're looking at some new fire trucks. I've got to make an argument to the mayor on Monday why this one particular truck is $62,000 more, but it's a better truck. And we're going to continue to try and get that better truck, because to me, you don't get low bid. You don't pursue low bid on fire trucks, certainly not on bunker gear, SCBA, or any of the other equipment that we buy. You don't look at low bid. I don't think we've done the best job, going to his previous question about buying the equipment that we should. I think we bought the equipment and we didn't do our due diligence in the beginning to ensure that we bought the right stuff. But we've learned from that. But we will continue to buy the best equipment that we can to try and protect our people. And I don't disagree with everything they say, but there's the intent that we'll we'll continue to strive to buy everything that we can afford. And if we can't afford some of the equipment, this is part of the concern that I had with some of our bunker gear. If we don't start getting a lot more money for bunker gear, it's going to be difficult to be a very aggressive offensive fire department if you can't put people in good bunker gear and expect them to go in and do their work. So we will continue to try and do everything we can to buy the best equipment.
I know from personal experience back when we were transitioning to new SCBAs, I thought we did a good job there. We had the field coming out back when we were here at this facility. They did a lot of testing with a lot of different ones, and I know the training division, we thought, we made our recommendation based on those. Welcome back. Sorry about the break. Again, I was ranting, I think, about SCBAs and the process we went through. I appreciated the opportunity of the training division to have input in that, and we did not. What we recommended is what we got, and we mumbled amongst ourselves and thought, man, they'll just go low bid. It doesn't really matter, the conspiracy theory. And they didn't. We went with the best equipment that was offered to us at the time and that met the specs. The equipment we have does have the capability to expand on some technology. Whether or not we can afford that or go there, that remains to be seen. But anyway, we are wearing some of the best equipment, especially if you look at other departments and what they have. We do have some very good equipment. Yeah, we may not have the best hose reels or axes. Maybe there's better tools out there or whatever, but when it comes to the main equipment, I think we've got some pretty good stuff. I know you all probably think I'm drinking the Kool-Aid in here. Here it is. Good stuff. Go ahead, the script is appearance. I think we've addressed all of the questions that we have. Appreciate everybody watching. I think this is probably a wrap. Please send in more questions. I hope this spurs some. Send in more questions so we can keep this going. If you're tired of watching it, I guess we won't see any questions, and this will be the end. But for now, I appreciate you watching. Thanks again. Any suggestions you have as well, not just questions, please send them to myself or the fire chief or whoever you think is interested. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
Chief.